in your business. So let's welcome him.
Well, that's the first 3 slides, so thank you, Melissa. No, I'm just teasing. This is one of the things that all of these programs are HRCI certified to where you can get credit for it. But we're going to do something real quick that is not HRCI certified, okay? I want you to talk to your neighbor or turn around and talk to somebody and tell them what your favorite childhood toy was. Favorite childhood toy. All right, that's a fun exercise for one reason. For that few minutes, you went back in time and you didn't worry about anything in business, didn't you? You were just talking about your childhood. Who wants to say what their favorite toy was? Anybody want to share?
Hot Wheels cars.
Hot Wheels?
Legos.
Legos? I was G.I. Joe. That was mine.
Kung Fu grip.
Huh?
Kung Fu grip.
Kung Fu grip. That would hold, it was free. This is how much we've changed. G.I. Joes used to be with the pistol, right, to shoot a rifle. That's where their finger was. So anyway, things have changed a little bit. But anyway, I just think that's a fun exercise to do, to kind of think about our childhood sometimes and not think about business. But going forward, we're going to. I'd recommend you all doing that in a team meeting sometime, just as an icebreaker to get things started. It's just a fun exercise. I think everybody likes to relive their childhood a little bit. So working on your business versus working in your business, a lesson that I learned 10 years ago. Up until then, I spent all of my time working in my business, not on my business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You've seen this. Melissa read it off. I'm not going to do anything about that. And you saw this. That is most of my career was in the industrial distributorship with my brother. We sold to people like Denso, Koyo down in Von Orr. That was my business, as we were selling to industrial manufacturers. Our father passed away when I was 30 and he was 33, and so we spent most of our time working in the business because we had to. It wasn't until 10 years ago that we decided we got to work on the business, and that came from me working for that German tool manufacturer. It's a $1.5 billion company in Germany, and we were their distributor, and they said, what would it take for you to leave your company to open up this distributorship in the U.S.? Told them a few things, signed a 5-year contract in 2014, and this is when I learned the lesson of how do I work on my business, not in my business. And then I was a COO for a $50 million residential construction company during the pandemic. I'll tell you that story a little bit later. That was a lot of fun. No. So, one of the things at Giant, if you've seen Melissa, probably me here before, we use a lot of visual tools. We like to use visual tools to teach concepts. And this is the Maximizing Team Performance tool. And what this is we have served thousands and thousands of companies, and we have found that these are the 5 areas that most companies struggle with, that if you can get these right, the flywheel gets going and you're almost unstoppable. It's communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capacity. You could actually say this is maximizing business performance because your business is just a big team of teams, right? So I call this a business maximizing business performance tool as well. Most of my time, most of my coaching time, most of the things I do as a consultant is I spend time with companies on communication and relationships. This is where most problems start in companies. If you don't have clear and strong communication, it's hard to build relational trust. If you don't have relational trust, the alignment, execution, and capacity are hard to get going. So this is where I spend a lot of my time is on the communication and relationships. It's funny, I was at a breakfast with a guy and he asked me what I do, and I said I spend a lot of time with companies on communication and relationship. He said, so you're a marriage counselor for businesses. And I said, yeah, you're right. Because if you think about marriages, where do most marriages break down? It's in communication and relationships. It's not on the alignment, execution, and capacity of the relationship. It is on the communication and relationship. So when somebody asks me what I do now, I say I'm a marriage counselor for businesses. But today, we're going to focus on alignment, execution, and capacity because what working on your business is. is working on the alignment, the execution, and capacity. I would recommend you working on communication and relationship, but that's not the focus of today. So what are the objectives today? First of all, we're going to define what is working in versus working on your business. Common challenges with spending too much time working in your business. The 4 reasons you should be working on your business and how, the how-tos of that. And that's where we're going to be spending most of our time. And then the last one are the key indicators that your company should be able to run without you. What are those indicators that would say that I could leave my company and it would run without me? If you've done a good job working on your business, that should be the goal, that you don't have to be there. Okay? So, let's just go ahead and define it. What is working in versus working on? Working in are those daily tasks and operations you do every day. This is a lot of HR professionals, I believe. So payroll, that's working in your business. I got to do payroll. I've got to count inventory. I've got, whatever those things are that you do daily in your job, that is working in your business. And we all have to do it. You can't be 100% working on your business. You've got to work in your business. So I'm not saying that it's wrong to work in your business, but the balance between the two, that's what we're going to talk about today. So working on your business is talking about strategic planning, growth initiatives, employee development, succession planning. You're not going to be around forever. What is the succession plan for you and your position? And if you're an owner of a company, what is your exit strategy? Kids, that could be a succession plan. But are you planning for that? That's working on your business. And then what is the vision of the company and developing that vision, and visions change. So you got to spend time working on the business and in the business. I'm going to make an argument today that you need to spend more time on than in as business owners or leaders in a department or anywhere in your business. Any questions about that? Is that clear? It's pretty simple, actually. So, what percentage of the time, just talk to your neighbor, what percentage of the time do you think you spend in your business versus on your business?
9%.
So does anybody want to give their percentage of how much they work on your business versus in?
You're true.
Anybody want to share? Truth time. I'll be honest, for me, it was probably 5-10% that I work on the business. And a lot of times that was because I had to. Something was coming up and I had to make a change or whatever and I had to think about it. But honestly, I probably didn't work more than 5 or 10% of our time, my time, on the business. I was always in the business. I was making sales calls. I was doing things with my salesmen. I was trying to find new lines. I was working in the business most of the time. And this is the aha moment for me. In 2014, I signed a contract with Hoffman Group. I lived in Germany on and off for about 5 months in 2015. The other part of the year I was back here finding offices, hiring people, then going back to Germany, learning the company and everything. And so 2015 was kind of my aha. The summer of 2015, this guy came over, Martin Reichenegger. Good name, right? For a German. He was the chairman of the board of Hoffman Group. He was my direct report. The U.S., Open the U.S. was his project for 2015 and 16. We were planning on opening on 2016. And so he was over here a number of times, but one time he was here. We'd gotten an office. We were doing a bunch of stuff. I was running with my, hat today, I was this, hat today, I was that. I was warehouse, I was, logistics, I was doing everything. And he said something to me that day after we'd had about week-long meetings. And he just looked very sternly. If you've ever been around many Germans, they don't mince words very much. Martin's a great guy, still a good friend of mine today. But he looked at me and he said, I pay you to think, plan, strategize, and develop your people. I don't pay you to do things. He actually used another word, but I don't pay you to do, And it was just kind of this aha moment. And so over the next 3 or 4 months, I spent time with Martin, talking to him via Skype, and I said, okay, what does that mean? What are the problems with it working in the business and not on the business? And Martin was just super helpful for me. And this started my journey of working on the business instead of in the business. So these are some of the common challenges that I have found that you run into if you spend too much time working in your business instead of on your business. Lack of strategic focus. I didn't have a focus for the future. I was focused on what am I going to do next week or next month. I didn't really have a strategic long-term planning and vision setting. And what happens is we get stagnated in where we are today and you don't see those future opportunities. I'm opening up a new distributorship. I'm opening up this huge new company. They had a great following in Germany. Nobody in the U.S. even knew our name. But I wasn't focused on the opportunities that could come up. The next challenge I found was innovation. If you're focused on day-to-day operations, you struggle to foster a culture of innovation, falling behind competitors possibly. And what that means is we've been doing it this way for so long, we've got to keep doing it, we've got to get getting better. And it's really, really hard to scale your company if you're not looking for new innovations and new ways to do things. We get stuck. I got stuck doing it the same way over and over again, and the only time I had change was what if I had to have change. Something forced me to change something else, I know back in, 90s, fax machines were kind of a thing, but it forced, the world got forced into fax machines back in the early 80s, mid 80s. Nobody had one. I sold fax machines. That was a long, long time ago. I could sell you a fax machine, but if Melissa didn't have one, it was no good. But then all of a sudden, Melissa got one, Paul got one, you got one, everybody got one, and I was to the point where if you weren't buying one today, I didn't have time to see you. But those innovations, nobody saw it coming, really. Didn't see the explosion of the fax machine. This was my worst one. The inability to delegate. And the mindset I had was, nobody can do it as good as me. I don't have to explain it to somebody else. They can't do it. I don't delegate. I didn't delegate. I just did it myself. I would work long hours to get things done when somebody else could have done it. But it really depleted or decreased team morale because people were sitting around going, why won't Charlie give me that to do? I know I can do it. So it really kind of hurt morale. When you don't delegate tasks, it can hurt the morale of the company. That was a huge lesson for me. This is one of our giant tools, but it's called the X Factor. And I'm sure there's been different charts that show this basic thing. But the idea is this is where you need to be focused on things that are highly urgent and highly important. And we tend to spend a lot of our time down here, low importance and low urgency. But the idea behind this is, am I focused up here on that vision, strategic planning, that kind of stuff that is working on the business, or am I focused on stuff that's in the business? I got to get the inventory out. Yeah.
Are you going to send us this?
Sure.
Like a copy?
I'll send you this whole presentation.
Perfect.
You can take pictures if you'd like. I'll need your email address and just send me an email. I'll have that at the end. But yeah, absolutely. I share this with anybody. You can, because it's so important to take this back to your companies as well and show them that this is what we need to start doing, in my opinion. But this was a hard one for me because I was doing it all. And I wasn't focused on the high urgency and high importance. And more importantly, this is what Martin taught me is, it's really focus on the highly important things, right? What am I going to do today for those highly important things? And part of that high importance is defining what's highly important. My personality is, I want to do the fun things. I want to do the easy things. I want to do the things that I can do really quickly without having to think about. They're typically not those high important things that take more time, strategic thinking time, by yourself time. So if you can focus more on the high urgency and high importance, some of the other stuff, delegation, will come naturally, and that's working on the business. It's up here at the top. So another common challenge, poor resource allocation. Without a strategic overview, we misallocate resources, focusing on less impactful areas and neglecting critical growth areas. We'll talk a little bit more about technology, but am I focusing too much time on hiring more people instead of hiring technology to do something? That was one of the things that my brother and I did after, because I was still part of Tool Crib, even though I was at Hoffman. And remember I talked about succession? We didn't have a succession plan. None of our kids wanted the business. I was 54, he was 57. And so at that point, we had this discussion. We started working on our business to sell it. It wasn't sellable the way it was. We had to do some things to make it sellable. One of those is technology. We needed to get our revenue per employee down, or up, more revenue per employee, and that meant innovations. And we weren't allocating the resources correctly. We were just hiring more people. What we found was if we spend the money on technology, we don't have to hire more people. And that was something that was a real aha for us as well. And we're going to spend a lot of time on this one. We're not developing our teams. The importance of mentoring and developing the team is your main thing you can do to work on your business. It just is. We're going to talk extensively about it later, but that is one of the main things I found. I didn't take time to develop our team. I was just hiring bodies. If you were a body in Baltimore, you're hired. I wasn't developing anybody. Some more. Change is hard. Nobody really likes change, but if we stay entrenched in those daily operations, it's hard for us to see the changes that are coming and what could be coming. So we need to take the time to look out on the future, look in the horizon, and say, what is coming, right? This is another one, short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. I was so focused on the here and the now that I didn't take the time to let my mind go where I needed to be and what it looked like from there. I was always focused on, can we do what we need to do today? Can we get enough orders for this month? It was always, okay, we made it this month. Okay, we made it this month. We made it this month. But it was all short-term, fixed mindset, I've seen some people call it, versus growth mindset. This was another one. I was very reactive, not proactive. As a leader, this is a mirror that really is a hard one for me to look at, or was hard for me to look at in the past. I was so reactive, I was not proactive. I was so accidental as opposed to being intentional about what I was doing with the company. And really to be honest, I was consistently inconsistent. So I was on both sides of the scale. I was consistently inconsistent about planning for the future. And this is a hard mirror to put up in front of yourself, but it's one you really need to take a look at. If I was to ask anybody that works for you or works with you, is Melissa proactive or is she just reacting to whatever the situation is, the fire today? Or have we thought about buying more fire extinguishers so we know how to put out the fire? You know what I mean? If you were to look at me 10 years ago, I was probably pegged over here on reactive. Whatever the fire of the day is, whatever the challenge of the day is, that's what I'm going to reactively take care of, but I wasn't proactive. And that's what that nearsighted thinking would cause, is ability not to be proactive. Reduce work-life balance. This was horrible for me. My wife reminded me of this all the time. My mindset was, I need to be the first in the office and the last to leave. Because I thought that's what good leaders did, right? Leaders eat last. There's a book called Leaders Eat Last, That's what I thought it was, is I had to do everything, and if it didn't get done, I'll just stay late and make sure it gets done. And that led to a terrible work-life balance imbalance. I remember my wife one time, she told me, I said, I've got to go to this meeting. She goes, what happens if you have a wreck on the way? I hope you don't, but what happens if you have a wreck on the way? I said, well, the meeting will go on. She goes, that's my point. You don't have to be at that meeting. And she still has that felt 2x4 that she uses fairly often with me to smack me upside of the head and say, you're an idiot. And I was. I did not have the work-life balance that I needed because I was working in the business. I was doing tasks that were not on the business. It was all in the business. So that's a real one. And I think you probably all feel it or have felt it at times in your life. This is a tool that Melissa, we do workshops on. So I'm not going to try, for the next 2 hours, we're going to talk, no, I'm just teasing. We're not going to talk about this tool for 2 hours, but this is a really good tool for getting that work-life balance back. And what we're saying on these 5 gears, anybody driven, well, yeah, straight shift? Yeah? No? Know how to drive a straight shift? Okay, good. You don't typically start in 5th gear, right? Unless you're on a big hill going downhill. You got to start in a lower gear to get the momentum to get up, you can get into higher gears. And so what we're teaching in this tool is there is time for full focus mode. You need to be heads down, taking care of whatever the hill is, the mission is, whatever. It's focus time. Nobody bother me. I've got to get this done. I got to get this report. I got to get this project done. That's 5th gear time, fully and focused on a project or into a project. 4th gear is where we spend most of our time, multitasking, doing stuff. That's what Martin told me not to do. Don't do stuff. Okay. 3rd gear, social talk, chit chat. 2nd gear is going deeper, one-on-one. We go out to lunch. We're just talking, about life and each other and going deeper with someone. And then 1st gear is that time we all need time for rest, recovery, regeneration. And most of my career, I was here to here. I didn't do any of this, or very little. And that's what leads to burnout. You've got to have time to work on your company by yourself or with somebody else if you have a partner or a team. These 3 right here. Yes, we spend a lot of time up there. I'm not saying not to spend the time, but those are the areas that I was terrible at. I did not take time to myself. My wife and I would go out for dinner, and that was 2nd gear time, granted. I thrive on social time. That's just my personality. I love being with people. And then I spent all of my time in task mode. I just did stuff all the time in the business, not on the business. If I'd spent the same amount of time working on the business those first 20 or 30 years, it would have been a different outcome, but I didn't. So the last 10 years have been good. This is one that really is hard for me because when you have a hands-on approach, it does create barriers of communication because you're doing stuff. You're not communicating your vision back to the people behind you, right? You've got a clear idea of what you're doing. I always did. I knew exactly where I was going. I just thought you could read my mind. And I was not communicating that well. So I'm not taking time to engage my team on what our vision is, what our plans are, where we're supposed to go. So this was a huge one for me, a lot of breakdown in communication. And then vision dilution. This is kind of I didn't have a vision. My vision was like right here. I really didn't have a vision of where we were going or where we wanted to be or where we wanted to do because I was working in the business right here. It's hard to work on your business when you're looking right here. You've got to have vision for the future. So there are the common challenges that I came up with in my 10-year journey of what the challenges are from working in the business more than on the business. Any thoughts, questions, ideas? I even have a slide for that. Questions? Okay, so we've defined what it is, what not to do, and the challenges of that. So this is really where we're going to spend most of our time today is talking about, okay, how do we fix it? What do we do about that? And so there's 4 areas that this is, in my experience, this is where I found that when I focused on this and decided, okay, this is what I'm starting doing to work on the business, this is where I went and what I did. So first is strategic clarity and vision. Operational efficiencies. This is telling you a little bit about technology that we spent time doing. Innovation and adaptability. And then the last one was, this was the real change for me, was I went from spending 5% of my time developing people to a pretty good chunk of my time developing people. That's what I found that was the biggest bang for a buck to where I could leave the company and not have to be there. So we're going to talk about that. So the first one, strategic clarity and vision. By dedicating time to work on your business, you gain clarity on long-term goals and develop a strategic vision for growth. This clarity allows you to steer your business toward the objectives and purpose and direction. This was something that Martin suggested I do, and I really started doing it. He said, you need to take at least 30 minutes a day, I don't care when it is in the day, for a clarity break. Turn off the world, turn off the business, turn off what you're doing, and really focus on the challenges you're facing in your business. Work on those challenges. Don't think about the task, what you've got to do, your to-do list, but write down your challenges you face because you're spending time working in the business. That's where that list came from. Taking the time to write down, okay, what am I missing here? And then create the vision of where you want the future to be. And when I say I did all this on myself, Martin was a huge mentor for me. He was 30-ish, somewhere, late 30s, and the chairman of the board of it was the largest tool distributor and manufacturer in Germany. He didn't do that by doing and working hard. He did it by thinking. He was brilliant man. And he was the one that helped me with all this. So I don't want you to think that I figured all this out on my own. And you can, but you need to have a sparring partner to help you talk through these things. But I would have a clarity break, and just about every day I would call Martin on Skype. I don't know if y'all remember Skype. That was pre-Zoom and pre-Teams, but we use Skype every day. And I would talk to Martin typically in the morning for me, at the end of his day. He said, okay, what are you working on today? What are you going to be working on tomorrow? And so he helped me with this, but he called it the clarity break. And I take a clarity break now for an hour every day at the end of the day. That's just what I do. 4:45, I take no appointments, I go walk. That's just my clarity break. I go walk. I go to a park in Knoxville and I think about it. I have my phone with me, I jot down notes. But that's something that has been huge for me, is to give yourself that little bit of time in the day. Start with 15 minutes. If you can't give yourself 30, start with 15. Just to think about working on your business, on your department, on your company. It's just a little hack for me, but this is what I want you to work on during that clarity break. Can you clearly tell your team and your company what the 10-year target for the company is? Do y'all have a target for the next 10 years? Right? Okay, let's back up one. Do you have a 3-year picture? What is this company going to look like in the next 3 years? So here we are in October of 2024. So what is the company going to look like in October of 2027? What does that picture look like? Can you paint that picture for your team? So if your teammate came and said, okay, where are we going to be in 3 years? Can you paint that picture? And then lastly, a 1-year plan. What are we going to do in the next 12 months? I'm not saying in 2024, I'm saying in the next 12 months, because this keeps moving. What in the next 12 months are we going to do to make sure we hit our 3-year picture and our 10-year target? And these aren't necessarily goals. They're not necessarily revenue goals. My 10-year picture is to influence 10,000 people with giant tools in the next 10 years. Kind of a BHAG. Y'all ever heard that? Big, audacious, hairy goal, right? I mean, it's just something that, am I going to hit it? What? No, maybe. But every month, I focus, okay, what did I do this month to get me closer to 10,000 people? You know, this year, my 1-year plan was to influence 1,000 people with a giant tool. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, I'm 20 closer because of today. But that is my 1-year plan. It might change next year, but my 3-year plan and my 3-year picture and my 10-year plan haven't changed. This is what I do in my clarity break. What am I going to do to hit that? So, give yourself a couple minutes. You might not have ever done this exercise, but I'd be interested to see, what is your 10-year target for your company, your department? What is your 3-year picture and what is your 1-year plan? So I'm going to give you a 3-minute clarity break just to think about that. Not even 30. So just write that down. So is that an exercise y'all have ever done? Does anybody want to share what their plans are? I saw a lot of writing. There's no right or wrong answer to this, by the way. I mean, it's your department, it's your company, it's your thoughts. Does anybody want to share what theirs are?
I think with our company, we're in the technology industry. So it's always a struggle to keep ahead of the curve, you know, and to maintain that ability to stay, you know, because you're only going to be the best as long as you're ahead. So focusing on that, making sure we're ahead on technology. We are in, you know, fire alarm, life safety,
Okay.
low voltage area. So that is constantly changing, especially when you're dealing with clouds and things like that. As far as 3-year picture, you know, a stronger, knowledgeable sales staff, stabilize operations across all our branches. So they do things differently from one branch to the other. So stabilizing that. And then I said better people in the right roles to sustain growth.
That's
So
great.
we have the right people, just maybe not in the right roles. So shifting that around a bit.
Right people, maybe not the right seats?
Yeah, right people, wrong seats, I think sometimes. So you're not utilizing their best abilities or, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, sometimes you don't know what you can do until you're pushed a little bit. And then as far as 1 year, plan is disengaging from being in the trenches, as I say, and grow my team so I can disengage from that and help upper management, you know, with their strategic planning.
That's working on the business. Delegating those things, getting out of the weeds, that kind of thing, that is working on the business. That's great. That's great. Anybody else want to?
HR has one of the most unique opportunities in today's, because of the workforce challenges that every company is undergoing right now. If a company is working on their 10-year, their 3-year, their 1-year plans, HR is going to figure prominently in those plans.
100%.
They're not going to be able to achieve those plans without the staff to achieve them. So everybody in HR, you know, you got to have the money, you got to have the accounting, you got to have the inventory, you got to have all the other departments. But without the, you know, the company's made up of the people, and without the HR, you know, being able to help the company achieve those goals with staff, then they're not going to achieve the goals. So good communication between
Exactly.
the rest of the company and HR. So it's really a great time to be in HR. I mean,
Yeah.
it's stressful, but it's probably the best time to be in HR in the development of business in our country right now, actually.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about it. I don't want to spend too much, but HR has the challenge now of where are the people going to be? It's not just who they are, it's where are they? Are they in India? Are they in Tucson? Are they? I mean, y'all have a challenge of, I don't necessarily have to have somebody in Blount County to do this particular role now. And that's really been in the last few years.
That's never happened before.
Yeah, we had to hire somebody here. The pandemic did a lot of harm, but it did some good things too. I mean, it forced us to do some things that we didn't see coming. Who had ever heard of Zoom before 2020? I hadn't. I mean, I'd used Skype, but I'd never heard of Zoom. Anyway, so that's an exercise. That's what you can do during your clarity break. What are these things that we're doing long-term, strategic vision? Do you have a vision and mission? And I'm not talking about the thing that's on your wall when you walk in the door that says, this is our mission and this is our vision. Those are for the outside world. Are your people living that vision? What are your values? Are you hiring to those values and firing from those values? Are these people living your values? What is truly the values of everybody in the company? Leadership, is everybody clear on their responsibilities? Or is it, we don't know, he does it because he did it last week, or they did it, and that was me. I did everything, so I had no clear role. Do we have a strategy? How do we win? How do we structure it? What are our tactics? Do our people know what to do and when to do it and how to do it and who to go to? So that's some of the things you can work on. Now, I've left I've left Hoffman, had a 5-year contract with them, planned on retiring. We did a lot of good things. We went from $1 million to $11 million in a short time. We did a lot of right things. The company is still going today, doing great because of some of the plans we laid out with Martin's help. And I was planning on retiring, and a buddy of mine at church said, hey, I got this residential home company, and we're right now at about $8 million. I want to double it in 3 years. I want to use a book called Traction. I don't know if y'all have ever read it. It's a great book. And it was like, oh my gosh, somebody has taken all the stuff I've worked the last 5 years and put it into a book to help us do this. So we were an $8 million company. We were starting 2.3 houses a month. We had 34 employees. 2.3, yeah, that was a statistic. how many dip footers we dug, and all that kind of stuff, right? So, fast forward August of 2021, we were at $50 million. We were starting 11 homes a month, and we had 90 employees. The pandemic caused this. This is not Turner Homes that we built these amazing houses. We hired a few more people, but you don't build 4 times as many houses with just a few more people. We had no choice but to work on the business. We quit working in the business 100% because it wasn't sustainable and scalable for us to grow that fast, that quickly, and scale that much without having everything. And literally, all we did was work on the business for a year and a half. It was a horrible time to be in the construction business, I'll just tell you. It burned me out quicker than anything I've ever done in my life. You know, we couldn't get shingles. We closed on one house that had 2 different sidings on them because the siding the color they picked, the boxes were cracked and we couldn't get any more. So we just had to go get white vinyl. We could get that. So we put white vinyl on one half of the house so they could close the house. It was horrible. But we did it because we worked on the business. Our management meetings every week were about nothing but working on the business and on our strategies and how we did that. And so EOS, there's implementers, I believe, in the chamber members that are implementers for EOS. If this is something you would like to talk to me about, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. This is a systematic way to work on your business. It's in a book. If you really want to work on your business, this is the book you need to read, and this is the program you need to implement. It took everything that I'd worked 5 years with Martin on to figure out, and I didn't figure it out totally. We started implementing EOS, and this is, if there is a work on the business book, this is the work on the business book. It is systematic. It forces you to do it. So this is a shameless plug for somebody else. I don't do this, but I can put you in contact with people that do. But I believe in it because it forced us to work on the business like I'd never worked on it before. So basically what EOS is, and I'm not going to go through their whole process, is the 90-minute meeting, you bring somebody in and tell you about EOS and how it works. You have a focus day. We have an accountability chart. You were talking about that, Shannon. What are people accountable for? What is our meeting? What is our scorecard? What are we going to measure? Then you go to a 2-day vision building session to where you talk about your values, your focus, your 10-year target. Y'all have seen that before. Your marketing strategy, your 3-year picture, stole that, and your 1-year plan, stole that too. So all the things we saw in those last few slides came directly from EOS. It forced us to do this because we didn't have a choice. We were selling houses to people, I forget the exact statistics, so I'm going to make it up. Like 85% of the homes we sold in that 18-month period were to people from out of state. We had people from California, Illinois, New York, all these places that were super shut down. And they would, and our sales rep would just walk them through the house with an iPhone. They go, we'll take it. I don't care how much it costs. We'll take it. That's how we were selling houses. It was insane. We couldn't keep inventory. But we learned how to do this. But this is the key. You get onto a 90-day world, and this is where I really want you to focus on, is getting into a 90-day world where you and your leadership team or your team members get out of the office for a day. And you have to get out of the office. You can't have the phones ringing. You put your cell phone down and you spend a full day working on your business for the next quarter. That's how we did it. And then every week we have a meeting, a 1-hour meeting with the management team to work on issues and work on the business. This is not, again, a commercial for EOS. But if you want to start working on your business, it's in a book. It'll show you how to do it. I'm a big believer in it. So start living in that 90-day world. And this is what a lot of people say, hey, we can't afford to take a full day out of the office. All of us, the management team, are you kidding me? You're going to have to take a day out of the office if you ever hope to take a week out of the office. And you do it once a quarter. And you're going to say, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to take 2 days at the end of the year and have an annual retreat to really work on the business for the next 12 months. I can't afford to do that. I'm telling you, you can't afford not to. If you want to work on your business, you can't afford not to get away from the office and take the time to work on your business. It's just, there's no other way to do it. I wish I could give you a magic pill and you take it. No, I'm working on the business now. You got to take the time to do it. That's how it works. That's the only way it can work. These are the things you're going to work on in those meetings, in those quarterly meetings, and you're going to work on your visions, you're going to work on data, you're going to work on your processes, you're going to work on meetings, you're going to work on issues, you're going to get your people, right seats. There's a tool in there to help you work on that, okay? EOS Worldwide is their website. But call me. I've implemented this in a company. I ran it for years, a couple years, until it totally burned me out. The construction business is horrible. I'll just go ahead and tell you. You might be in it. I'm sorry. If you're in it, it's just a different world, totally different world that I was used to. But this is working on your business, these areas. Any questions about that? That's where you're going to spend a lot of time. If you want to work on your business, you're going to spend a lot of time in strategic clarity and vision. Because if you don't know where you're going, you're absolutely going to get there. Okay. The next one, operational efficiency. Working on your business, streamlining operations, building scalable systems, deleting tasks effectively, delegating tasks, and improve reducing bottlenecks, all the things that come with operational efficiencies. EOS will help you with that, but it's something that if you don't think about, okay, where's our bottleneck? Work on that. Don't just keep doing more of that. Don't keep working in that. If you know it's a bottleneck, that's a good place to start. Start working on your business. This is a tool that retrospect, we did this at Turner Homes because we had to. We didn't have any choice. Our plans were simple. They weren't scalable, and they weren't sustainable. We had our operations manager, she had this big monster spreadsheet, and we could tell where every house was in the development of the house. Okay, we dug the footings, we laid the block. Every step of it was like 60 steps, and she kept this Pareto. It was beautiful. When you're doing 2.3 houses a month, you can keep up with that. When you're doing 11, it's not scalable. It's not simple, and it's not sustainable. We had to change that process. I didn't know about this tool back then, but that's what we did. We spent money on a software that would do all that for us because we couldn't do it. Lisa did not have the capacity to do what she was doing for that many houses because it were taking 5 months to build a house. So you got, 55, 60 houses on this sheet. You can't keep up with that. You just can't. So make sure your plans, are they simple? Are your processes simple? Are they scalable? And are they sustainable? Usually, I work with a lot of sales teams. I've seen some commission plans. Oh my goodness. It takes the salesman going, I don't know, I had a good month. They're paying me that. I have no idea how to calculate my commission. I don't have a clue. It's not simple. It was easy for the accounting people. They just plug it into a formula and something comes out. But that's just one area. But all of your plans or all of your processes simple, scalable, and sustainable. If they're not, that's a good place to start working on your business. Work on those things. Delegation. Do you have an organizational chart or do you have an accountability chart? They're different. Organizational chart says Charlie's at the top, these 3 people are under him, those 7 people are under him, her, whatever. That's an organizational chart. An accountability chart is who's accountable to who and for what. It's a difference between looking at the person versus the role. So is your role HR, benefits, payroll? HR is this huge bubble on the organizational charts, but what are the people in the HR department accountable for? So there's a big difference, and it takes time. This is probably one of the hardest things you'll do is to take all the names out of your organizational chart. Scrap it. Just throw it away. Take all the names out of the org chart and write down the roles that you need for your company. Just the roles. Once you get the roles, then you start putting people back into those roles. So I might have 2 roles or 3 roles, but I'm only one place on the org chart. So that's the difference. I don't know, is that clear? Does that make sense? This is an EOS thing. You spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the roles are in the company, not necessarily what the positions are in the company. As president, CEO, or as COO, I had a ton of roles, but I was only one box on the org chart. So that's what we had to define. Okay, what is Charlie accountable for, and who's accountable to him? Whose responsibility is it in that organizational accountability chart?
Charlie, I have a question.
Yeah.
I've seen this before, but a question for you. How often have you found in being involved in building these accountability charts that people have overlapping roles?
It's huge. Huge issue. And what happens when you have that is, man, do I go to Greg or do I go to Melissa? I don't know. What are you accountable for, and who are you accountable to? Right? I'll show you a tool here in a minute where we can do this and do it for every single person in the company. See if I can jump a little bit ahead of time. No, I'll get to that. But yes, defining those roles is really, really hard. It really is. And it's sometimes well, they've always done that. They've always been in charge of the alarm system. Yeah, but are they in operations? Should they be in charge of the alarm system? I don't know. They've always done it. Well, so-and-so always does whatever that thing is. But is that their real role in the company? That was a hard one for me. Martin helped me at Hoffman Group, but at Turner Homes, we had to do it so fast. That was the challenge there, because we did it so fast that it's like being in a microwave. We had to do it so fast. But once we got to the other side of it, it was like, man, this is so liberating and so freeing that everybody knows who's accountable to who and for what. All right, innovation and adaptability. Strategic focus encourages innovation and the ability to adapt to changing market conditions. And my goodness, yeah.
I have a question. So about the accountability chart. So I'm guessing at Turner Homes, you guys use a lot of third-party vendors and whatnot.
Yeah, 100% of our workers were not employees.
So in that case, do you fit them as external employees or external vendors in the accountability chart, or is it just your own team?
Just our own team. That's a great question. So in our accountability chart, operations, I'm just going to go with operations. Operations role was to build a house. That was the ultimate role, which meant a lot of different things. Then we had what we had called site managers. So they were accountable to operations to get that site, keep it going. And then under the site managers, we had superintendents. And the superintendents were in charge of the subs. Our subs never were in the accountability chart, but I guess if you went the one level down, the subs were accountable to the superintendent, and the superintendent typically would have 3 houses going under his control at any one time, and then the site manager would probably have 3 superintendents under his purview, so to speak. So site manager was reported to Lisa, the operations, and that's how they were accountable to. Now, the further down you get, you tend to do a few more things. But also, like at that point, one of the things about the site manager, the superintendents, they were accountable to make sure when the invoice came in for whatever sub did it, that they checked the work. Because I used to look at all the invoices. I didn't have time to do that anymore. I had to delegate that to my superintendent, that he checked that Paul laid 100 brick. That was on him. He was accountable for that now, not me. So I had to change. That's what we went from working in. Man, I used to drive around in my truck, go to the job sites, take biscuits and donuts. Everybody loved me when I came by. Couldn't do that anymore. Just couldn't. We had to work on the business. So, but that was hard for us. It was a couple months for us to figure this out, because Antonio was doing everything. He was running the backhoe. He was running. That was another thing we did. We realized we couldn't sub that out. We're going to have to start doing it ourselves, because we couldn't depend on a site manager or a sub to come in and dig our footings. So we went out. I bought, $500,000 of equipment, kind of to this, and not really innovation, but it was adaptability. We couldn't wait for subs to come in and dig our footings. and wait for the guy to come. So I went to John Deere and I bought a skid steer, Bobcat, skid steer and an excavator for every job site and the diesel tank to go with it. That guy loved me, by the way. It was one of the things that, it was a John Deere guy, Chris was his name, and I went to all of them, John Deere, Bobcat, did my work. So this was working on the business. We had to adapt to the fact that we couldn't use subs for that anymore. And then we had to hire operators to do it because we had to get that as an efficiency. Yeah, I spent $1 million in a couple weeks. But that's the adaptability. We had to be able to be adaptive. We had done it the same way forever. Mike had always hired subs. I remember the excavating company just got pissed at me too. Wait a minute, we're losing all this business? Sorry, man. If you could get here on time and be at the right time at the right place, we would have kept you, but we couldn't. Yeah.
Another question. So I think briefly you mentioned that you brought in a software system to help you with your operations manager. I'm running into a similar type of issue. I mean, it's not really construction, but how do you, you meet with the sales rep and the onboarding person and whatnot, you start setting stuff up, right? And there's obviously like a setup cost, whether it's time or a fee or whatever, right? And then, there might be an initial pushback from, let's just say, people they're like, hey, I use this Excel spreadsheet, or I use my trusty composition notebook, or, I use this, I don't want to use this app, and, I got to make an account and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
How do you, I can see from looking at the P&L and stuff where, it will help us a lot, but how do you convince them that it's a good idea?
Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit because we had to do that very thing. Builder Trend was our software. Remember you said I'd drive around to all the sites and I would take pictures of where we are on the site and all that kind of stuff, and I could go back to Lisa and say, okay, lot number 17, we got the roof on today. Lot number 22, we got the windows in today. That was me and Mike driving around. Okay, that's how we did it. We got a software called Builder's Trend. Builder's Trend had this application, or part of the application, where our site managers and superintendents could take a picture and then Lisa just had to go there. We didn't have to drive out there anymore. They hated it. They absolutely hated it because it was taking their time. They had to put comments in there. But I'm going to go back a little bit.
But if you get them to buy into the vision,
Thank you. That's what I'm trying to find here. I can't find it, but that one that I had that talked about having a vision and making it compelling, we spent time explaining this is where we're trying to go, and the only way we're going to be able to get there is with you and with this app, and so we created a vision for them. They still didn't really like it, but what they did find out was we could go back and it kind of covered their tail, And so then they started to embrace it because, hey, I showed you this. Why are you calling me? I've already done this. Go back to my post from 2 days ago. I had it placed a picture. So they actually, I don't ever want to say they enjoyed it because it took their time. It did, but that was the only way we could scale. We had to spend the money. Now, fortunately in that industry at that time, money was coming in pretty fast, and we were able to spend money that we probably wouldn't have had if we were at 2.3 houses. So I don't want to say it was all us. We were able to spend some money that we probably wouldn't have been able to spend otherwise. But what it did for us, it transformed the company. The company now, we've got neighborhoods in Chattanooga, or they do, neighborhoods in Chattanooga, 2 or 3, 4, 5 in Chattanooga. We've got 6 or 8, they have 6 or 8. They have a number of them here in Blount County. And they've scaled the company, but not scaled that many more people. They're probably 120 people now, probably a $100 million company. So all that work we had to do to work on the company that first year and a half is paying off now. And Mike, we'll get to this later, Mike is there maybe a week, a quarter. Mike Turner, the owner, he left the company. And I'll show you how he did that in a second. This is why you want to look at adaptability. The world is coming to, AI, I don't know if y'all played with ChatGPT and all these crazy things out there. It's mind blown for me. For a 63-year-old, this is like, it's scary. I did watch Terminator, I was back in that generation. I said, it's coming. The eyes are going to turn red here pretty soon. HR world, work from remote work, what? We're going to have to deal with that in the future. What is your plans for that? Cybersecurity, it's coming. I mean, I've talked to some cyber people, say it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when. It's just going to happen. So what are your plans for that? Spending time working on just digital integration with everything. Everything's being digitally integrated. All the communication stuff. Supply chain, another huge issue. Every port on the East Coast is shut down right now. Do you have any idea how many containers come in on the East Coast and our goods and products come in on the East Coast every day? It's going to be disruptive. And now we have I-40 shut down through Asheville. That's another logistics chain. Anyway, things that you can't always plan for, but just be thinking about. And then for HR, this is huge. The gig economy. A friend of mine, she runs a day pay, labor force, workforce kind of thing. People don't want to work full time. They're fine with working 3 days and getting paid for that. They're fine doing gig employment. I'll do this project for 3 weeks and I'm going to go on vacation for 2 weeks. I mean, it's coming. It's people don't really want to go to work for a company anymore and just stay there forever. They're going to move around. That's not my generation, I think, and I don't understand the whole thing. But the gig economy, I've been reading a lot about it. It's going to be a thing. My assistant, I've never met her. We talk every week, but I've never physically met her. But that's what she does. She's just a virtual assistant for people. She works from home. That's her gig. She had 7 clients, then she had a baby, and now she's down to 2. I won the lottery to keep Christina, but that's her gig economy. It's just a different thing. These are the kind of things that when you work on your business, you can take the mind time to be thinking about, what if? What if we get cyber attacked? What are we going to do? Any questions about those? Okay, this is number 1. Absolutely number 1 is to develop your people. You get one thing out of this whole seminar: spend time developing your people. That is your future. Businesses are great, but we run on people. Whether they're in person or remote, this is where you want to spend most of your time. Now, 80% of statistics are made up on the fly. That's just a fact. I just made that one up this morning. But, and I'm not going to read all of these, but basically what this is saying, because we're getting short on time, but basically what all of this is saying is the millennial and Gen Z, they're looking for career development. They don't want to just come to work. They want development. And they're going to find it somewhere. They're going to leave a company and go find it somewhere. 93% of millennials want lifetime learning, and 4 out of 5 consider the opportunity to learn as a new skill as a top factor when choosing a job. What does your all's development plan look like? This was interesting. They look at not long-term employability, but over long-term employment, employability over long-term employment. They want continuous skill development. And this one, organizations that invest and engage in their employees, especially young workers, create a culture where individuals are more involved and productive. They're more engaged. Spend time developing your people. If you do nothing else, EOS, anything else, this is one place you can work on your business today, tomorrow, the next day. It's a good place to start. 90% of organizations surveyed indicated that leadership development is a priority. Everybody says it. Unfortunately, only 14% of you do it. You say you want to do it, it's a priority, but we don't spend any money on it. This kind of blew my mind. Only $444 per person, and that's a huge average. You only spend $400 a year on your people? $20 a month? That doesn't seem like much to me. Y'all are HR professionals. Does that seem high or low to you? You want to answer?
It's about what a pizza costs, right?
Yeah. We're not spending that kind of money. And some of them are spending up. What's that?
We spend a lot more.
You do spend a lot more. Yeah, good.
Well, we have succession plans and we have a lot of internal trainings that all of that.
That's great. See, that's working on the business. You're developing your people. That's great. We didn't do that at Tool Crib. If you hit your quota, great. You're good. We just didn't spend time doing it. So this is a big learning for me. We had to train a bunch of site managers. They knew how to use a phone, but they did not know how to use an app to track the building process. We'd spent time training them on that. So how much time, quick question, just not an answer here, but just how much time are you spending? It's really about the time and the money, you know. Melissa and I, Paul, we do a lot of training with companies, and a lot of times the number one objection is we don't have time for that. You know, we don't have time to spend 3 hours working on developing our people one day. We don't have an hour a month. You know, it's just people saying we don't have time. It's usually not the money. I don't know, Paul. It's not.
Yeah, I would agree. It's hard. It's like, oh, I can't give them up for 2 hours. Or
Right. But you can't afford not to give them up for 2 hours. That's the point of this. So, how many of you all climb Mount Everest? Anybody climb Mount Everest? I'm not going to, I hadn't either, so don't give me. But really, going from Mount Everest at 17,500 feet, which is 3,000 feet higher than the tallest mountain in the continental U.S. Okay, think about that. That's where they start. And to the summit's 29,000 feet. It takes about 2 months for most climbers to climb Mount Everest. It's only about 11 miles to the summit, but they have to climb it about 6 times. So basically what they do is they go up and come back down, go up a little bit further, come back down, go up a little bit further, come back down, go up, come back down. They got to acclimate to the mountain, to the altitude. If we dropped you off at the top of Mount Everest, you would die within a couple minutes. You're not acclimated to the mountain. And so the climb Mount Everest takes about 2 months, and then you get to the top. I made it. I made it to the top. I made it to the summit. I'm on top of the world. But that guy didn't make it by himself. That guy got him up there. The Sherpa is an indigenous group that in the Nepali mountains, and they've climbed Mount Everest so many times that they teach them. They're a leader for that guy to get up the mountain. They teach them how to use the ropes, the ladders, the carabiners, the crampons, the oxygen, all the things that you need. I had the opportunity to talk to a Sherpa. Long story. I'll tell you later afterwards if you want to hear it. But I asked him, I said, how many times have you been at the top of Mount Everest? He goes, I don't know. I said, really? You don't know how many times you've been at the summit of Mount Everest? He goes, no. I said, how many climbers have you had? Oh, I've gotten 6 plus the last 4. Knew it immediately. It was that mindset of his, of he's going to help climbers get to the top of Mount Everest. He's been there so many times, he didn't even count anymore. He's the guy that goes up and sets the ropes that the climbers are going to use over the next 2 months to get up to the top of the mountain. The point about this is he is a 100% healthy leader himself, and he's multiplying that skill to whoever he's climbing with. And that's what we want you all to be as leaders. And working on your business is being healthy yourself, but then also multiplying, developing those that are going to come behind you. Because so many times we spend so much of our training dollar budgets, whatever, working on our skills, and that's working in the business, as opposed to working on the business, which is developing the personal skills, the self-awareness and others' awareness. We just spend a lot of time training on skills and not a lot of time on that personal and others' awareness. And that's where you can start working on your business. Start working on those things there. And again, that's just a place to start for working on your business. So this is a real quick assessment. I'm not going to take it because in the interest of time. But how good are you doing? On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you as a performer? But more importantly, how good are you at leading performers? How good are you at being a Sherpa? Yeah, you've climbed the mountain. How good are you at leading performers? In my career, up until 10 years ago, I was probably a 9-1, 9-2. And on a really good day, if somebody asked me a question and I got the opportunity to pour into them, I might be a 9-5. But it's a hard mirror to look at, to say, I'm doing really good in my job, but am I really bringing up the people below me and helping them climb the mountain? Am I teaching them how to use the ropes, the ladders, the oxygen? This is a great mirror to look at and a good place to start for working on your business. If you can just work on this side over here, it's a good place to start working on your business. So we're not going to go into the pairs exercise, but think about your numbers and reflect on this a little bit about where do you think you are as a performer and as a training performer or developing performers. There's a lot of ways to do training, development of people. You can inform people kind of what we're doing here, training, kind of what we're doing here, number of people, you're broadcasting. But then you get into coaching and apprenticeship, and that's where it takes time. But really, that's what's working on the business. If you can spend your time working, coaching somebody or apprenticing somebody, especially if you've got a succession plan, who's that person that's going to take your place? Have them start working with you right now. Bring them into your decisions. Bring them into the meetings you're in. Apprenticing is hard. We've lost the art of apprenticing. You know, you see the pictures of the cobbler, you know, and the student sitting next to him, and he's doing the hammer. And what that is this tool right here. We all, pretty much in any job we start at unconscious incompetence. We don't have a clue of what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Pretty quickly, with some training, we get over here to conscious incompetence. Okay, at least I know that I don't know that, and I've got a chance to learn it. And I hope to get over here to conscious competence, where I know that I'm good at it, and so you don't have to do it for me anymore. I'll do it, but you just help me when I need it. And then when you get to your unconscious competence, that's when you know you've kind of made it. A person, it's unconsciously competence. Whatever you're doing in your job right now, you're probably unconsciously competent in it, right? If I was in HR today, I am consciously incompetent. I really don't know everything y'all do because I've delegated that out for the last 10 years to an HR professional. So I'm consciously incompetent. You see how that works? 2 days ago, I had to close the books for my company. Hate it. I'm consciously incompetent in doing books. Thank heavens for QuickBooks to do it for me. But I'm consciously incompetent. The problem is sometimes when you try to move that person from conscious incompetence to conscious competence, they fall into the pit of despair. They fake it till they make it. They really don't understand. They don't want to ask questions. They're scared to ask questions. And that's the danger. How do we get them out of there? This is working on the business. Spend time with them, formally and informally. Make sure the vision is both short-term and long-term so they can see that by going back to conscious competence, moving around, what that's going to mean for them. Okay? And then be specific. Don't just say, hey man, you're not doing it right. Okay, specifically, what do I need to learn specifically? How can I learn this? And don't just say, you're not getting it. You need to get them to conscious competence at least. So that's the 4 things you can do and how. Strategy, strategic clarity and vision. Operational, work on your operations. Adaptability, be able to adapt fast. But the number one thing is leadership development. Any questions? Okay, so here's the test. Ready? If you have been working on your business, and you've done a good job of working on your business, how do you know? How long could you be gone and everything be fine at your company? 1 week? Yeah, a lot of us take a 1 week vacation. The world doesn't fall apart. You can come back, I don't have to put out too many fires, but I can go for a week. I could maybe go for 2 weeks. Could you go for 6 weeks? Could you leave for 6 months? So what would that number be? Anybody want to throw a number out there? I'm not going to make you do an exercise, but honestly, if you left for 8 weeks, how long would it be before, I can't, it's not functioning? Tool crib, 2 weeks max. 2 weeks max. Hoffman Group, I got to the point where I was in Germany for 4 months. It was still running without me. I had phone calls. That didn't mean I was totally disconnected, but I was not in the office. I was not there. I was not accessible. I was 6 hours ahead of time, the time gap and everything. I was able to leave for 4 months. Turner Homes, I've left now for 3 years, and it's still running. And I've been gone. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying if you do it right, you shouldn't have to be at your company all the time. I'm not saying I don't want to be there. But how long do you think you could be gone? If you can leave for 4 to 6 weeks, it's a pretty good indicator that you've been really working on your business. Now that's my number. Somebody else might say something different. But that's kind of the goal, to set up the processes and the systems and all the things to where you can be gone for 4 to 6 months and be okay. So these are indicators you could do that. First, systems and processes are clear, they're documented, they're essential. If you don't have documented processes that everybody can read and understand, you can't leave. If it's all up here in your mind, it's going to be hard to leave if you don't have them documented. And I hated this. I hate documentation. That's not me. I go on the fly, man. I'll figure it out. I can't do that if I'm not there, right? So we had to document the processes. This is another one. We developed our team to where we empowered them. I empowered the site managers to take care of all the billing. I didn't have time to do it anymore. So we empowered them and they understood their responsibilities. I made sure that they knew, and I didn't have to be there. I didn't have to be there to check it. If a mistake happened, but they were responsible and accountable to it. Our accountant, he was a little more diligent about it, and if he found something, he'd let them know. But as the chief operating officer, I didn't have time to do it anymore, so I just quit doing it. So I had to be able to empower them to do it. This is that role clarity I was talking about. I would suggest that you take every person in your company, and you'll get this in the slide, write these things down. Their name, obviously, their title, who do they report to, location, company, depending on the size of your business. You know, it might be your branches somewhere, whatever. But then, this is what you can work on. Have you define what they're responsible for in that role? So if somebody has multiple roles, you want to do this twice or 3 times or whatever. You want to let them know what does it look like winning for them in that role. Not just, hey, you make your quota. The other thing I'll recommend doing this quarterly, don't do annual reviews. Everybody forgets stuff 12 months away. Do this once a quarter if you can. Remember we talked about the 90-day world? It's another EOS hack, is we didn't have annual reviews. We had quarterly conversations. And the quarterly conversations was manager who was responsible, who was accountable to this, and they just went and had coffee and talked about the last quarter, and we'll talk about the next quarter. But make sure they know what winning looks like. How do they know what winning looks like? And how do they fit in the team? What is the vision of their role in the team? And then what should they be contacted? Antonio, site manager, he knows who to contact him, right? His superintendent. All right, leadership, a capable leadership team. This is key. When I left Hoffman Group to go to Germany, I had a leadership team that you guys, you got it. I was able to let them have it. Same thing at Turner Home. Our leadership team, we were gone most of the time planning. We did not only the quarterly offsites, but we did a weekly offsite. We took about 3 hours every week for an offsite. And that's the only way you could do it, is to not have the phones ringing. And yes, the cell phones went in a box. You know, we had to. There's one guy who was like, no, I gotta have my phone. But anyway, we got over that after a while. And then communication, you gotta have a lot of communication. Both directions, not just top down, but both ways. It's gotta go both ways. And make sure it flows properly in your absence. And the last one, and this is a really good one, I use it today, performance matrix. Systems that are in place to track performance, ensuring the business stays on course. And this is kind of a joke, but it's not. The idea behind this is that if I could go to the beach, sit on the beach, all I can look at is one report a week. What are the numbers that would tell me things are on track? I don't need to go back, okay? And it can't be a ton of numbers, and I'll highlight meaningful numbers that are easy to obtain and the main drivers of your business. And what I mean by easy, I don't want somebody in IT to have to spend 3 hours to pull this massive report to get a number for me. I want it to be something that's easy to get. And these are just some examples from my world. At Toolcrib, order entry dollars and gross profit line of billing. Those two were metrics that were easy to rail. And what I say by order entry was, a lot of the tools we sold had a 12, 15, 24-week delivery time. So I couldn't track revenues because it was so sporadic when the revenues would come in, but I could track order entry every day. And I looked at order entry every day and every week, and I knew as long as our order entry stayed, above 80,000 to 100,000, we're good. things are great. We don't know when the revenue is coming in, but order entry was that measure for me. And then gross profit per line of billing. What the heck is that? I knew that on our systems, the way our systems worked, that it costs just as much to put in a line item in our computer system for a $10 item that we made $2 on as a $10,000 order that we made $20,000 on. Same work. So what I measured was, what is our gross profit per line of billing? I don't care if I got an order for $10,000. If it was 10,000 lines of entry, I just lost my shirt. And we started talking about that was a matrix that everybody in the company followed. Sometimes we wouldn't take an order. If we're looking at an order of 40 items that we're going to make $100 on, we just lost money. So you had to make that decision. But that was something footings dug, that was another big one for us. If we could, the only way for us to get 11 houses per month is to dig 11 footings per month. Super easy. Go to Builder Trend, footings dug, footings dug, footings dug, footings dug. It's super simple. Yeah.
So, do you take footings dug because that was the bottleneck in that business?
No, we just knew that if we got the footings dug, a house had started. Now, all of a sudden we have 3 weeks of rain, and footings were like at 2, 2, 1. Okay, this quarter's going to be tough. We're going to have to make it up somehow. It was just a real quick measure for me to say, okay, we're on track. Sometimes we'd have 12, 13, great. But that, for me, that was a number I could look at and just real quick say, okay, we're good. Next week, yep, we're good. Next week, yep, we're good. So I could look at that number, and that was a good number for me.
So my next question would be, so what do you look at typically when you're coming up with one of these metrics, right? Like order entry makes sense because that's kind of how much you're booking or how much you're selling, whether the
Right.
profit comes in the future or whatnot, or you just sold it in the future. But so what are you typically looking at when you come up with your metric, and what is the process like for actually, like do you sit down with, maybe your operations manager and say, hey, like if you come into a new business, for example, and you're doing consulting, you don't really exactly 100% know what they do, would you just come in, talk to the operations manager, figure out what they're doing, and then come up with a metric, or you come up with your own, or?
The first time we met as a leadership, we came up with like 12 metrics that we were going to follow. One of them was interest rates, one of them was, I don't know, a bunch of different things that we thought were meaningful to when we got together every week for 3 hours to work on the business. We thought those were going to be important numbers, and as it turned out, they weren't. Footings dug was just a super easy matrix. Like I said, interest rates back in the day in 2020, they didn't change that much. They were all at 3%, 3.2, and it didn't move the needle. It takes a little bit of time to figure out what data that you're looking at has an effect 6 months from now. So we were dead wrong. If you looked at our scorecard from when we started to the scorecard when I left, totally different. That was one that stayed because we could really tell financially what it meant, because if we start a footing this week, we're probably going to get revenue for that 5 months from now, right? And we knew the average, we sold houses that were basic, you've seen them. You pick your plan, they're basically the same price. We knew about what our average price was. We started, as COVID hit, we started tracking lumber costs. The lumber futures, that became a huge matrix for us because futures on lumber went from 400 1,000 feet up to 1,800. And we had to change our process. When we started seeing lumber prices going up like that, we quit taking contracts on houses until they were built because we didn't know what our costs were going to be. So by following lumber futures, that became a very important number to us because we knew it had an effect 6 months from now. So that's how we did it. Every business is different. I put on down here new members. I think about the chamber. If they, how many new members do we get? Does that? I don't know. Your business is different. My business is different now. My matrix now, my scorecard now is how many people did I tell about Giant? How many sessions did I do? That's my 2 matrix right now. So every business is a little bit different, but the idea is to have a number that you could look at even if you weren't in the company and say, we're on track. I don't know what that number is, and I will tell you, you're going to be wrong the first time. I found. You might be perfect and nail the 6 things, but the 1 minute. The challenge here is don't make it too many, like 4 to 7. Don't make too many numbers. And don't make somebody go spend 3 hours to try to get you the number. It should be something that's readily available to you.
And how often did you say, did you review those?
Once a week.
Oh, wow.
This is that we started living in a 90-day world. We don't really care what January looks like, what December looks like in March. We just don't. With these numbers, we can adjust for that, but every week we looked at these numbers, every quarter we adjusted what we're going to put on the scorecard. So if you want your business to change, and thanks for all the great questions, just do it. This is a change equation. If your dissatisfaction with where you are now, and your vision for where you want to be, and your next natural step is clear, as long as those are all greater than the resistance to do it, we don't have time. I can't do it. I can't take a month away. And until those 3 are greater than the resistance, change won't happen. And this works for anything, not just working on your business. So this is a tool that I use a lot when people say, we can't do that. Who says you can't? Is there a prohibition against doing this? No. Or is it just a limiting belief? I've never done this before.
Could you go back to that slide?
And then if you want to jump through resistance, what is resistance? It's either a barrier, a hurdle, or a gap. And very seldomly is there truly a barrier that you can't change. Limiting beliefs up here says I can't change it. It's a barrier. We can't do that. Gosh, there's no way we can take a week off, 6 weeks off, 4 weeks off. That's a limiting belief. There might be a hurdle you have to get around or a gap you need to fill, training, whatever it might be. But very seldom is there really a barrier. So as soon as these become greater to whatever the resistance is, that's when change happens. And this was my aha moment 10 years ago with Martin Reichennecker sitting across the table from me. My boss, chairman of the board. I don't pay you to do stuff. I pay you to think. And that was kind of like, okay, I don't know if I can do this. I've always worked in the business. How am I going to work on the business? There's kind of the summary of the indicators. And here's the summary of what we talked about today. Just actionable steps. Start with a clarity break. Just take 30 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. Think through these things. Think about a scorecard. For the next week, think about what are those numbers that we might be able to look at that tell me where I am in my business. Take a quarterly day away with your team. Just do it. I know you can't afford it, but I'm telling you, you can't afford not to. Find an apprentice to pour into, create the scorecard, and make a decision to change. So, any questions? Sorry I rushed there at the end. It always happens. You practice these things, you go over them, and it never works out time-wise. But thank you for the questions and all that. Here is my QR code. If you want to email me, just send me your email and say, hey, I would like the deck or I'd like the slides. I'll send it to you in PDF. Or if you want the PowerPoint, I can send it to you in PowerPoint if you want to manipulate it. It's really a hard email address, charlie@charlieslagle.com. So that one's fairly easy. And if you want to call me, call me. Call Melissa, call Paul. If you want to, this is what we do. We help companies do this now. If you want to know more about EOS, I can put you in contact with the right people. But that is how you systematically work on your business. And I'm just a huge believer in it. And I don't even get paid for it. So, yeah. Any other questions? Melissa?
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay.
Appreciate